Hello and welcome back for another historic video. Today we'll be taking a look at this Bogles R's enchantment deck with the recent adding of Slippery Bogle to Magic the Gathering Arena. So when it comes to creatures, we now have two 1-drops with hexproof, both our Slippery Bogle and our Gladecover Scout. These will be targets for our enchantments, which will receive buffs and also interact with our opponent. And then we also have 4 copies of Lightpaw, Emperor's Voice, which if you've been playing Historic, you already know this is an extremely powerful creature. And when we cast an R and it enters the battlefield, we're able to tutor up any R card in our deck with mana value less than or equal to the one that just resolved, as long as it has a unique name that is not already on the battlefield, and we can put it on the battlefield and attach it to Lightpaws. So essentially, we can play a 2-drop R and then go get and tutor any R that we need at that given moment and attach it. So extremely powerful, tough to deal with. And then we also have 2 core Spirit Dancer, which gets buffed for each R attached to it. And then it also has a card draw ability as well. When it comes to our enchantment R's, the 4-count ones are the most critical. The Ethereal Armor and all the glitters both give creatures +1/+1 for each artifact and enchantment we control. So these are useful if we are trying to equip to our hexproof creatures specifically, because they will be able to get pumped up and their dinky little 1/1 bodies will become quite large. And then also sheltered by ghosts, giving lifelink and removing one of our opponent's permanents is a very powerful effect. This would also grant Ward 2 to the creature, which is only relevant for the Spirit Dancer and the Lightpaws, as they don't have any built-in protection naturally. We also have 2 Shard Mage's Rescue for the same purpose. If we have one of the non-hexproof creatures, we can use this to protect from a targeted removal spell. And then the rest of the cards for R's are all 1-ofs, and in part this is due to Lightpaw's ability, where we don't necessarily want to have 2 or 3 of the same card name, because then we might run out of tutor targets. So we have a Cartouche to give first strike. It also comes with a 1/1 Vigilant Body. And then we have Sentinel Eyes for vigilance. So if we get a large life-linking creature that we can use to attack and defend with, a lot of decks will struggle to deal with it. The Aqueous form will allow our creature to be unblockable. And then every time it attacks, we can scry for a little bit of card selection. Audacity will give +2/+0 and trample. And then if this R is put in the graveyard, we can also draw a card. Alpha Authority will grant hexproof to our creature and also make it so they can't be blocked by more than one creature. So this will most frequently be used as a tutor target for Lightpaws to give it hexproof. And then not being able to be blocked by more than one creature is beneficial, especially in the early game, where the easiest way to take out one of our creatures would be to block it with multiple creatures and deal combat damage to it. We have 1 Rune of Might, which also grants trample, and then we get to draw a card when it enters the battlefield. And 1 Staggering Insight for an additional lifelink card. This card also allows us to draw whenever combat damage is dealt to our opponent. And then one of the tutor packages that I've been quite fond of recently, the Enlightened Tutor card, allowing us to search for an artifact or enchantment. It also slots into this deck quite well, as all of our R's are enchantments, so we can tutor up one that we might need in a given situation. And more importantly, it allows us to essentially have 5 copies of Grafdigger's Cage in our deck, as well as 5 copies of Portable Hole. So in case we run into any aggressive decks like Minion of the Mighty or the Persist combo deck, we have quite a few answers in our deck that we can tutor up. Additionally, the Enlightened Tutor can tutor up our one copy of Ancient Tomb if we need additional land drops. When it comes to the mana base, for this one, I chose to go with 4 Prismatic Vista, which means we're running a handful of our basic lands, 2 plains, 1 island, and 1 forest. That way we can have access to all of our colors. And then as a primarily Selesnya colored deck, we're running the Razor Verge Thicket and Temple Garden dual lands, as well as 4 copies of Starting Town, which also acts as mana fixing. And then since all of our permanents are 2 mana or less, we also get to play Lurrus of the Dream Den, which is also on color for us. And this will allow us to cast a permanent from our graveyard each turn with mana value 2 or less. So if for whatever reason one of our creatures was removed or some of our enchantments made their way to the graveyard, we will be able to recast them later in the game using our Lurrus. The previous R's enchantment deck was tremendously strong. It was Boros colored most of the time. And so looking at this Selesnya one that's splashing a little bit of blue, I'm very excited to jump into the gameplay. Looking at the deck, it looks like it's going to be quite strong, and I would love to test it out and see how it does. So without further hesitation, let's jump into the games. All right, no creature here. That has to be a mulligan. This is much better. We will throw back one of our scout. So the Bogle is marginally better than the scout in the sense that it can be cast with a green or blue pip. So if we did have our island in our hand, we could use the blue mana to play the Bogle, and so that's why we're keeping that one. And we'll start off with the Bogle. It looks like elves on the other side of the battlefield. So we will start with our light pause and pass back to our opponent. Leaf Crown from our opponent. We will take it. Then we will use our Staggering Insight. And here we will tutor up a Sheltered by Ghosts, get rid of their Leaf Crown, and our opponent concedes. Alright, we have a Bogle and a good number of R's to attach to it. We will keep this. We can use our Prismatic Vista to fetch up a Plains. Opponent appears to be on an artifact aggro deck, so we're going to be looking for some life gain. We'll probably hold the light pause until we can double spell, unless we run out of R's to play, just because we don't want it to be susceptible to removal. Take 1. Love to have a land off the top here. And there we have one. So we will play out our Starting Town. And then for mana efficiency, I think we still need to play the Sentinel's Eyes, because all that glitters is going to be our tutor target for life gain for light pause at the moment. Second Synthesizer, revealing a mountain. They play it out, and now they're down to 1 card in hand. This deck doesn't really play pump spells, so we're not expecting any combat tricks. And then here we can play out our Light Pause and Ethereal Armor. No attack with the Bogle. And the next turn we can put life gain on Light Pause, and that should be game over. Sacrifice Synthesizer. He has another Great Furnace, which they can play out. And this should be game over right here. We'll go tutor up some life gain. We'll swing in for 15. Our opponent jump blocks. No sacrifice effect, so we gain 15 life, and our opponent concedes. Alright, here we have a Scout and a Light Pause, as well as some removal. This is a keep. Our opponent seems to be on a Valakut lands deck. We will start out with the Scout and pass the turn. Second Valakut. We will shock in our land and play our Light Pause. That's one that we want to shelter by Ghost. Unfortunately, they already have 6 mountains. Here we will cast our Sheltered, take out the Dryad. Go for 2. Another land is a Great Top Deck. We'll grab a Plains, and then we'll play out our Light Pause and an Ethereal Armor. From here, we will tutor up our Cartouche, and we'll hit for 5, gain 5 life. Flame Slash to take out our Light Pause, and then another Dryad. 6 damage to face. We will play out a Scout, and then another All That Glitters. Our opponent is going to have trouble racing us with the life gain. Next turn they'll be forced to chump block. Rumble for an Exploration will not do it. They do have a chump blocker. This one they can sacrifice to prevent us from gaining life, but they throw in the towel. Okay, this hand is keepable. We don't have one of our hexproof 1-drops, but we do have Light Pause, which, if left unanswered, can really take over the game. Looks like it could be the Wizard's deck on the opponent's side of the field. Here we will play our Glade Scout and pass the turn. Hold up Enlightened Tutor. Most likely go grab a life gain card. Sheltered by Ghost is the better option since it also doubles as removal. There is a Dreadhorde that we will want to take out. Our opponent will flash back the Swift Spear's Teaching, and we'll take 1. We'll tutor up our Sheltered by Ghosts. And then here we will Sheltered, taking out the Dread Horde, and then play our Armor. Hit for 4, gain 4 life. And this will be very difficult for our opponent to race. First Strike makes blocking almost impossible. Can't target it with their removal spells. Balmor from the opponent. They will give it Prowess. And then a second Sorcerer Teachings. We will hit for 4. And then here we will move Lurse the hand. There's no point in playing out a Light Pause or Spirit Dancer without an additional enchantment to initially gain some value. And our opponent is not going to have any targets to use creature removal on. Now, if they hold back Balmor, we might not have a good attack, because if they have a few instant speed spells, they can pump it up quite a bit, and we'll potentially be able to take out our scout. So we'll have to wait and see what they do on their turn before making a decision on whether or not we are attacking. They have a Steel Cutter. Do they have a second spell to trigger it? They do. So here they might attack in with the Balmor. We'll take 2. Another Sheltered by Ghosts is great. So we will play this out, and I think we're going to take the Balmor. That is the most threatening, because if they do go wide with the Quarry Steel Cutter, then they can pump the entire team each time they cast a spell. So our opponent takes the Chump Block. We are up to 31 life. And because of the Ethereal Armor, every enchantment we draw scales exponentially, and so we really don't have many bad top decks. Even one more land would allow us to play out a 2-drop creature and a 2-drop enchantment in the same turn. Although multiple lands off the top could end up slowing us down. Our opponent hits 3. They still think they are the aggressor. Here we will play out our Light Paw, and then we will put a Cartouche on it. And we will tutor up a 1-drop. I think here we will get our Vigilance, and then we'll hit for 8. Let's see if our opponent wants to chump. They do. All right. Let's see what our opponent has in store for us this turn. They will take out our Light Paw and draw 2. We have a backup, and we can also give our Glade Cover Scout Vigilance, which our opponent will not be able to get through on defense. without a blocker. Here they will hit with Dreadhorde and flash back Flame. And they'll draw 2 cards as well. We don't have any artifacts in play at the moment for them to destroy. So we have another land. Here we will play out our core, and then we will escape with the Sentinel's Eyes, and we will get rid of the Light Paws and the Tutor. Draw a card. It's an All That Glitters. So here we'll hit for 8. Our opponent jumps. We'll gain 8 life. A second Steel Cutter from our opponent. And they will take out our Spirit Dancer. They'll pump up the Dreadhorde. And they swing in, leaving 1 blocker back. So here they might have a Monstrous Rage, so we do have to be thoughtful of our blocks. They have 21 damage coming in. That would add 3 damage from the spell, taking it up to 24, and then Prowess would be 25, 26, 27, so we will take it. No need to risk blocking here when we have an All That Glitters coming up. So we will play out a Light Paw. Our opponent will have to remove it in response to All That Glitters. And let's see, in this scenario, we will grab Alpha Authority. We won't miss it if our opponent removes our Light Paws. Since they didn't, it will now have hexproof the rest of the game. See if our opponent destroys their own token with the life gain. They do not, so we gain 16 back up to 28. The first Symmetry Sage from our opponent. cast a Wizard's Lightning. So notably on previous turns, if they had this Wizard's Lightning in hand, they could have targeted their own creature to prevent the lifelink. Our opponent playing very slowly this game. They out-of-war the Sheltered by Ghosts. Here they have one additional pump that they can cast from hand, which could add up to 5 damage to one of their prowess creatures, so we'll take that into account when blocking. So we will block the second largest. So actually here we will block the Dread Horde, prevent some of that flashback damage, and then coming through we have 22 damage, and if they add an additional 10, 13 they can add to it. So we will actually chump with these light paws as well. We don't really need it to win this game. So here we will play out another light pause, and then the Sheltered by Ghosts that our opponent bounced to our hand. Take out the Balmor again. This time we will tutor up our Rune of Might, allowing us to draw a card. Then we will hit for 17. Our opponent will have to chump with their Symmetry Sage. If they destroy our light paws, we can then play Lurrus and use that to give trample to our scout. So that would be a mistake by our opponent. They have another Balmor. And a Symmetry Sage. Will they flash back their Reckless Charge? Failing to do so indicates that they have additional interaction in hand. We'll see what they target. They target one of the Monk tokens. That's fine by us. They're doing some math in their head. I feel like after flashing back the Reckless Charge, you're kind of obligated to attack in. Okay, so we'll trade with the largest creature. And this will put the rune in our graveyard, so we can start dealing damage to our opponent. And with only a Symmetry Sage and a Monk token back on defense, this should be lethal. So we'll play out our Lars. Make sure to target the correct enchantment. And then we'll swing for 18. Very good game. Here we have a Bogle, a Light Pause, and a single Aura. We do have some Graveyard Hate if needed. Let's give it a try. We will start out on our Bogle. Red-blue deck from our opponent. Since we have 2 Light Paws, I think we're fine running one out here. We'll hit for 1. If our opponent removes this one, it is not the end of the world. Possibly an affinity deck. And there is the Emissary. Let's see how bad it is. Do they have a Kappa? They do. With 2 mana, we will play our Sheltered by Ghost on our Light Paws. We'll take out one of their flying creatures. And then here we want to tutor our Ethereal Armor since we have one in hand already. We will attack in with our Light Paws as first strike. Our opponent won't be able to block it successfully. They take 5, down to 14, and we are up to 25. Depending on how many artifacts our opponent has in hand, this could be a good race to see whether our Light Paws is able to keep up with their Kappa's scaling. They warp in another Emissary. And then they have a second Kappa. So very strong hand from our opponent. They hit for 8. Here we will start with our Audacity. And from there we will tutor up Vigilance. And then we have an Armor. And we will grab our Cartouche. And we'll swing for 19. Our opponent is forced to chump, and they will take lethal if they don't have anything else. Good game. This hand has a couple hexproof creatures as well as a Spirit Dancer. It will be a keep. We do not have any of our pump enchantments, but the Spirit Dancer should be able to draw us into some additional action. Eldrazi on the other side of the table, most likely. And it is. We will play our starting town into our Glade Cover Scout. Some ramp from our opponent. We will play out our Spirit Dancer and hit for 1. In our upkeep, we will likely tutor and go grab a better enchantment card. Here we will grab Sheltered by Ghosts, just to try and slow down our opponent's ramp. And we will put it on the Spirit Dancer to enhance our damage output. Hit for 4. Our opponent has 4 mana at the moment. This could jump up to 6. We'll see if they have a Sowing Microspawn to follow it up with. Another Power Stone, so next turn they can cast Devourer. We'll continue to pump our core to get additional damage. And this is going to have Ward 2. So our opponent would need 1 more land to be able to target it. I think we are going to have to hold up our rescue. We'll grab another green land, play out our scout, and then we will hit for 8. Pass the turn. If our opponent doesn't have another land, they might go for Sheltered. They have a World Breaker, so they will destroy our Shelter by Ghost. Unfortunate. Here we will give our creature Vigilance, draw a card. Light Pause is a good pickup. We will swing with all. Our opponent has to chump with their World Breaker. And then we'll move Lurrus to hand. If they aim for our core here, we can protect it with Rescue. And our opponent concedes. This is a bit of a slow hand, but we do have plenty of creatures and some good auras, so we will give it a try. We'll lead on the plains. It could be the mirror matchup. A forest into a Light Pause. Could have led on Spirit Dancer, but I do believe this is going to be a R's deck from our opponent as well. And there we see their Spirit Dancer. So we will fetch up our blue island. And then cast our Staggering Light. From here we will tutor up Sheltered by Ghosts. And we'll play out our scout as well. Hit for 4. And our opponent concedes. Wow, yeah, as expected, this deck did very well. I don't know how a green deck or a red deck or even a blue deck, like, they just don't have any cards to answer the hexproof creatures, and you could pretty much just run away with the games. We didn't come up against any black decks that are running sacrifice effects like Sheoldred's Edict. I would imagine as more people start to play this R's deck, you'll start to run into more of those in the meta. And similar with a Azorius control deck where they have some board wipes or exile-based board wipes, pretty much being the only way that a deck could even be remotely competitive outside of racing. You'll see a lot of mirror matches, I think, with this deck popping up. And I do have a couple of changes that I think I can make, swapping out some of the R's that we have and potentially playing around with the mana base as well. So keep an eye out in the coming weeks for a second version of this deck where I try and play around with some of these cards and see if we can improve the already powerful deck. But yeah, it did great in the showing, and I'm going to play some more games with it later today. And want to thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more content.